We are excited to have Nishino America as our title sponsor for 2026. Nishino is driven by ingenuity and R&D, bringing innovative chemistry that works. They back every product with a customer-focused expert who knows your field and is ready to help. Stop guessing and find solutions today at www.nichino.net. Thanks again for Nishino for sponsoring the show and this episode of the Specialty Cropcast.
Welcome to the Specialty Cropcast on Pomes and Stones. Join us for real conversations with farmers, agribusiness owners, and industry experts as we dive into farming, products, and the business of agriculture, all from the people who know it best.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Specialty Cropcast. We are one guest or one host short this week, Zach.
Yeah, I got promoted to the
You got promoted
second chair.
to the second. He's moved up to second chair. He's here in the middle for our online interview. Today, we're going to be talking about fresh market apples and GoGo squeeZ, which is super cool because I think that's a name that about everybody recognizes. I think you said that.
Oh, my
little
my
one.
girlfriend's kid just annihilates those pouches. She loves this thing.
Just a couple a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, at least a couple.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
They're a must.
Mhm.
You got to have one.
Yep.
So we were super excited when Rachel reached out and wanted to talk a little bit about GoGo squeeZ and a cool regenerative ag program that you guys are running with growers here in the state of Michigan. So that's why she's here to talk with us today. So Rachel, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys for having me too. I think we've got a lot of really fun things to talk about.
Yes, we're very excited. So what exactly does a fresh apple buyer do?
Sure. We have for GoGo squeeZ, there are two plants in the United States. One is located in Napa, Idaho, and one calls Traverse City home as well. So I purchase on the east side of the United States is kind of how we break it down. So I source all of the fresh apples that you see in those GoGo squeeZ pouches that are made right there in Traverse City.
Nice. As we said, that's right in our backyard down the road. You can't drive out of town without going by the building.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that-
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy that all the this popular of a brand is right in our backyard here up north, which is pretty cool. So what does a typical day look like for you buying
Sure.
apples?
What? Yeah. So at the Traverse City plant, we run apples 24/7, 365 days a week. So I am consistently scheduling those apples to go up to the plant to basically go from that fresh apple that everyone sees at the grocery store shelf to the GoGo squeeZ pouch that everyone knows.
So how do you build that relationship with a grower as the season goes on? You obviously know you have an idea of what kind of crop you need to bring in to hit your guys' goals to make sure that you have that product running into the plant all the time. So how do you balance that in a season or in the last couple seasons where we've had some hail damage, we've had some issues with the fruit? Has it become challenging in order to procure that amount of fruit from across the country?
Yeah, it's absolutely become challenging. So I source from about 60 fresh apple growers on the eastern side of the United States, and 45 of those are right here in Michigan. And of those 45 growers, I've worked with the high majority of them year over year. So it's this really kind of simple process that I understand what varieties they grow on their farm already. They kind of know those old processing trees are going to go to process anyway. So it's kind of this consistent conversation we have of they know what their crop is shaping up to be like. I kind of take those numbers of what they want to send to me and kind of build from there, starting with those key suppliers we have, all the way down to those who may have had fruit that was supposed to go fresh and now needs to go to processing due to some of these weather challenges, such as frost, hail, anything else that Michigan may experience weather wise too.
Yeah, we spoke with Corey from Greenstone Farm Credit Services, and he talked about their endorsement, the quality endorsement, where if you have a hail event, you can still send your fruit out for processing and still make a claim on that fruit. So I bet that kind of changes the influx of fruit that you get. You probably have to roll with that when it comes in, or you hear about these events throughout the season, and you kind of know. I'm guessing that you're going to prepare for maybe a couple more phone calls than you usually get in a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Even not being a grower, I don't have apple trees at all. But those frost events that we had this year really kind of kept me up wondering what this crop was going to look like. So we kind of keep an eye on it, stay in touch with our growers, try to start visiting them once a week to kind of see how that's all shaping up.
Yeah, it's been quite the frosty spring, that's for sure.
That it has.
Especially in all across the state. I mean, northern
All
Michigan,
across the country.
yeah, across the country too. Northern Michigan, we kind of seem to be a little bit of a sweet spot for fruit that's left over, but a lot of the rest of the state has been hit pretty hard and had some. I mean, I was even talking with some growers on the ridge, and they had bloom for like 2 weeks, 2 week long, because it was such a cool spring. So that brings its own challenges, having different sized fruit. And
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of spaced the state out really weird too. I noticed, like Southern Michigan was at least during bloom 2 or 3 weeks ahead of where Northern Michigan was too. So it's a new calculation every day that we're trying to guess the unknown.
yeah,
Yeah, and we've got a orchard 20 miles north of our farm here that's probably a week behind everything down here. So yeah, just the weather has impacted everything this year.
even on a small scale, like you're saying, from here just a couple miles north, but let alone from downstate.
Yeah.
Our acreage downstate for cherries, we were figuring, just like you were saying, in Southwest Michigan, we were 2.5 to 3 weeks ahead of time. But we always have a bigger gap, and we always seem to close it in Northern Michigan because it always heats up quicker. I mean, look at us this week. We have
Yeah.
high 80s and 90s every day. So you can see how it doesn't take us long to catch back up to close that gap. But yeah, I mean, even if you have, like us on our farm, we've planted different varieties to harvest in different windows in order that we can keep guys continuously working, picking throughout the season through different varieties, whether it's fresh or processing. And
Yeah.
and even within certain varieties, there's gaps. And so it's kind of like, you've got to be prepared to kind of move with, make some adjustments to that when it comes through.
Absolutely.
Talon had a question on here. Do you have an off season, or it doesn't sound like you do?
I used to have an off season. Obviously my job gets a little bit easier when I'm pulling out of our CA storages to go up to the plant and scheduling those trucks. But I stuck my nose into this regenerative thing, and I can't say I regret it, but there's no longer a slow season.
Okay. Oh man, I imagine. But you just said your kids just got out of school, and so you're trying to find some sign. Wow, you start that
Yep.
over.
Yep. Today.
I was just excited. So you finally found some slow time here for a little bit to take a little bit of time for the family before, obviously, you start getting into the thick of it and meeting with growers right before picking season.
Yeah. And today was the first day of summer. So it's trying to find a new balance with everything, but we roll with the punches, right? That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, that's always fun realization when the kids aren't at school 5 days out of the week. So what type of fruit, what varieties of apples are you guys looking for the most, or what's your most popular? What are you looking for to buy that gives you guys the best results?
So up at the Traverse City plant, we break varieties down into what we call primary and secondary varieties. So our primary varieties really encompass what you kind of picture as old processing varieties, right? That's Golds, Jana Golds. We do Fuji Gala, Brayburn, Matsu, and Red Delicious as well. And then our secondaries kind of encompass the rest of those varieties that you see in Michigan. So Rome's, Ida Reds, we do some Ambrosia Evercrisp, Honeycrisp, but they're not our favorites. So we do have a large span, but we obviously pick our favorites. We enjoy our favorites.
Right. Is it like a grower has a bunch of one and they're like, well, we'll give you all of these, but you're going to have to take these ambrosia off our hands if you want them.
We do get those situations sometimes, but I am lucky enough to have a very supportive grower base here in Michigan that we don't really see those situations anymore.
That's
But
good.
if every Macintosh in the state got pushed out of the ground, I would sleep better at night.
I feel like I hear that. That's a pretty common thing to hear.
Yeah, yeah. Every Mac, Cortland, and Spies, they can go, and I would be fine.
Sleep better at night.
Yeah.
So what characteristics of the fruit do you guys look for the most? Is it size? Is it the quality, the coloring? What's the perfect apple look like for you?
Yeah, so rainbows and sunshines, it would be a golden delicious that's in that 3 to 5 starch range with a brix above 12 that can store for 1 full year, right? So the skin color does not matter to us, but those rest of the qualities really, really make a big difference, especially for a plant that runs year round, fresh apple only, and also for a product that does not do any added sugar in it too. So that blend and that sweet taste that you identify with GoGo squeeZ is just off of the bricks of the apples and the blend that we've created up at the plant. So that would kind of be my perfect apple.
So you mentioned the regenerative ag program. Now, we actually had a conversation with an individual from Meat, Lauren. She came on and talked about regen ag from their kind of perspective. So what does this new program mean to you guys, and what's the excitement behind it?
Yeah. So, um, corporate. So our parent company, which is Bell, came to us in, I want to say it was late 2023, early 24, with this idea of regenerative. And Bell, as our new parent company, is not just a believer that regenerative is going to help us, but we encompass the full healthy snacking ideal. And with that kind of starts with the where we produce our food. So regenerative was kind of this concept that, healthier soil makes healthier trees, makes healthier apples, makes healthier snacking. So that's kind of what we ran with it. And we are now in year 3 of what we're calling our pilot program growers. And we started with just 8 on year 1. And this year we added 14 more growers to this pilot program. Yeah, it really is really, really exciting. It's interesting to see the growers kind of latch onto it as well. And then we did partner as well with Eco Soil Solutions with Chuck Chambry and Clayton Handy. And they're kind of our regenerative specialist consultants. So they're kind of helping walk our growers through this process, helping us understand what it looks like to grow regeneratively and to be a regenerative sourcing company.
So how has the approach to that kind of evolved or changed in those since those first years to kind of now as you guys add new growers to it?
It definitely has. So as just a processing buyer, it kind of seems like, just give me apples, and if they make good applesauce, I'll be happy with it. But it's really hard not to kind of get a passion in this growing region, especially for the growers too. And so what we kind of tried to do was hold up guardrails so that our corporate partners weren't going to throw something out to our growers that wasn't possible on the farm or wasn't really logically feasible when it comes to the challenges that growers face with labor or with input costs. And so we kind of held up the guardrails on that. And so, with Bell, what we did is create this program that helps growers grow regeneratively with someone to kind of help guide them through it, but also do something on the farm that makes sense to them and the way that they grow as well with the equipment they may have or the labor that they may or may not have as well.
Yeah, I like what you said there about making sure that they don't put something out that's not feasible or not realistic. Because when we talked with Lauren from Meep, it's always like they just put livestock out there. Could you imagine having some goats out there in your apple orchard? Like there's just so much, there's so many layers to it, and it may apply in some certain spaces. So it's good that you guys kind of, put the blinders on, not blinders, but you're forcing them in the right direction to make sure that what they're trying to accomplish is actually possible.
Exactly. We're just trying to keep it between the mayo and the mustard here. So, yeah, and don't get me wrong, if a grower wanted to be daring enough to try livestock in an orchard, I would try to help them figure out a way to create this regenerative, but I'm not going to push anyone to do it. It's their farm, it's their operation. And at the end of the day, I don't know any apple growers that also want to be sheep farmers.
Well,
You have some sheep at the house, don't you?
got a few.
Here's the foot in the door right here in a second. Start
Exactly.
you out.
Yeah.
So what practices are you seeing growers adopt that fit within the goals that you kind of outlined here?
Yeah. So, what we did with these regenerative goals, because our company did make a public statement that by 2030 we would be sourcing from growers who are regenerative or are moving in a regenerative fashion, is we broke it down into tiers. So, we have tier 1 through tier 4, with tier 4 being very, very similar to a regenerative organic certified grower. So very, very kind of hard niche to get into there. Where tier 1 is kind of simpler stuff, right? Of hanging fruit, if you will, where can we mow a little bit less in the orchard because that gives us less passes on the tractor, it allows that grass to grow a little bit longer. So the taller grass you have above, the more root product that you have down below helps your microbiology, unlock nutrients, stuff like that. And then working with some growers too on shrinking up that herbicide strip underneath their trees. And so those are 2 really easy ones, especially if you kind of look at some of these older processing varieties, they're naturally in a low density system as well out in the orchard. So they're kind of spaced further apart, they're bigger trees, they can handle more weeds underneath them. They can handle that more ground coverage to kind of keep that soil healthier. And so those are kind of, our easy KPIs that we can target in that tier 1 situation. And then from there, we kind of move into stuff like introducing bat boxes or owl boxes for, predatory birds that can help with mice and vole issues, bat boxes may help with predatory insect issues and stuff like that.
Is there, so if you outlined a couple tiers there, does being at a certain tier have any added benefit to the program or how you're paid for fruit or anything like that? Is there any reward? I guess
Yes.
not. Maybe not reward, but
Yeah, so there is, depending on what tier you're in, there is we're calling it like a financial incentive. So it kind of comes as like a regenerative check, similar to what another processor may do, to encourage growers to move a little bit further up in the tiers. But we also know that we need to support these changes in practices, and that's what's going to make it happen, right? An incentive for some of these growers.
yeah, I was gonna say nothing gets people motivated like free money, a little more money in the pocket, right?
Yeah.
That's what we all go out the
Right.
door in the morning for, right? Is the
Exactly.
promise of
Well, and
something
it's
coming
super
back.
interesting too, because there is a generation of growers who has kind of latched onto this regenerative idea even before there really was a definition to it. But you still kind of have some of those growers that they do it because that's how grandpa did it, and which is fine, but with a little added incentive, it goes a long ways.
Yeah. So, do you see any problems or challenges when people are trying to change over that they've reached out for help with, or anything that's kind of surprised you as growers trying to transition to this regenerative ag?
I can't say that anything surprises me anymore when it comes to agriculture, but some of the challenges that we're seeing is equipment. That's a really, really big one. As you shrink up your herbicide strip underneath, obviously, you may have some mowing issues where growers may specifically buy that 12-foot mowing deck because their row is 12-foot wide. Well, suddenly we've got 13 feet to mow. The last thing you want them to do is have to do two passes through a row because that just completely defeats the purpose. So equipment is a challenge for sure. And then looking at some, softer pesticide solutions, biopesticides, if we will. There's quite a few when it comes to like pheromones out in the orchard for codling moth or OFM. But it's kind of like we've put the cart in front of the horse where the industry is not quite at the scientific level without that giant price tag that we are already moving into.
Yeah, it's trying to find that sweet spot kind of to get that balance that makes sense. Because I'll tell you, in our organic orchard up here, we do mow twice a row because we have yet to find a quality organic herbicide that actually does a decent job under the trees. We tried a couple of the different options, but they don't work. So now we run a mower twice a row as close as we can get to the trunk of the tree without hitting it. And yeah, I mean that adds double the time, it's double the fuel, double the labor, it's everything. So obviously you're trying to steer somebody away from doing that. Otherwise it'll turn them off to a program like that if they have to do stuff twice.
Exactly. And another solution may be an in-row mower, but those aren't perfect either. A lot of them are coming from Europe and made for European orchards, and obviously we have a different growing standard than there. So each level kind of comes with its own challenges that we're discovering as we go.
Yeah. So where do you see regenerative agriculture heading in the apple industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
So me personally being in this regenerative space, working with the generation, kind of the same, who has young kids that are paying a little bit more attention to our grounds. I really see regenerative as becoming the new conventional growing standards. And I know some people may disagree with that, but we know that we have to change, and progression has happened since we started farming. And I think this is the next progression.
Yeah. So you think there'd be like a almost, I guess it wouldn't be, but like almost if you're not doing regenerative ag, that you'd be able to start turning growers away if they're not in some sort of tier of the program at some point in the future. I mean, not saying that's what you're aiming to do is to funnel out the conventional folks, but
Yeah.
is that kind of where you think it'll be if you're not doing at least something or attempting to do regenerative ag that it may cause some problem in the future?
Yes, for me personally, sourcing with GoGo squeeZ, by 2030, our growers will all have to be moving into regenerative or in a regenerative fashion when it comes on their farm. But I really kind of see this regenerative farming idea as the new conventional as we move into the future with this.
Yeah, obviously it's a pretty big deal because you said you recently had someone from France come hang out with you, a counterpart to try and what was it to get to know some of the growers and try and make sure you guys are all on the same page on this regenerative push.
Yeah, so I had Chloe from France, which is our, GoGo squeeZ French bell division. She came over. She is the regenerative specialist for bell squeeze, so the apple side over in France. And what we're really trying to do is align our two programs. I mean, that's the only way that anyone is going to make progression on this is staying aligned and we all move the same direction. So yes, she was with me For 2 weeks. I had her in the truck with me for a full week. We were able to go visit some growers. We were able to work with our regenerative consultants, EcoSoil Solutions, out there with some growers as well. And then we really spent some time sitting down and seeing how aligned our KPIs are, even with the different growing styles that we have between here in the US and over there in Bouvet, France.
Well, that's pretty exciting. Has she ever spent any time in the States then, or is this her first trip?
She's been in the States previously, but she is new with Bell from, about 3 months, 4 months ago that she joined. And this has kind of been her entire project. So this was the first trip for her specifically for regenerative and orchards here in the States.
Was she involved? Is she involved in agriculture over there in farming, or did she have any comparisons to make between farms? And I'm just curious about overseas compared to us. Did she have any
Yeah,
comparisons?
her reactions,
Yeah.
the way we
Yeah.
do things compared to them.
I think the most interesting thing that she had a reaction to for me, the most interesting thing was that she was so surprised that cover crops in an orchard is a growing practice. It's a grower standard. Where over there, they don't generally have grass in their row centers. And to me, that was super surprising because that's just a natural growing practice for us here in Michigan.
Mhm.
So between that and the Apple community, if you will, where all these farmers are able to communicate with each other, talk about what's working on their farm, what's not working. That was very different for her as well, she said.
Yes, there's one thing I've noticed, whether it's, following different people on Instagram and stuff, that there's a much larger Apple community of people that are liking other people's posts, commenting, and a bigger community for that compared to the cherries. There's like nobody nobody's doing cherries. Nobody's talking to each other in cherries or sharing secrets, right, Zach?
Mhm.
We have the same crop consultant and we still have different spray programs, which is it's pretty incredible. But obviously we talked about a lot of things, and we actually have a grower who is involved in this program that has already been a guest on the podcast. Our friend Greg Kugel from Southern Michigan. Greg, if you're still there, feel free to join in.
What's going on, man?
So Greg, you've been listening in for the last couple minutes, and right off the bat, when Rachel she reached out via one of the clips that you talked about when you were on. And so I would love to know your perspective and what it's like being part of this program that Rachel's part of.
I think a lot of people thought it was gonna be a real big change to how you operate your farm, what you have to do to switch it to be in compliance with what GoGo squeeZ really wants. And it's truthfully, it's not bad. It doesn't take a lot of extra, really anything. I mean, we do double mowing already. I don't think the fuel costs and all that is really anything too bad. I mean, it's a little bit extra time out of your day, but you get closer to that tree and it makes a really nice pattern. We've been doing it probably maybe a little bit before Rachel approached us on the idea of doing the regenerative for no other reason. Like Rachel said before, there was no term to it, but it was just how we were growing things to kind of slow those trees down. Come be told, leaving that grass underneath those trees, you're not slowing anything down. Those trees can handle it. But I think for anybody that may be nervous about switching to regenerative, that's already a mature grower, instead of them looking for an alternative of maybe wanting to be out of it and switching to someone else, I think they can easily become in compliance, at least with that first tier with very little
change to it.
Yeah.
So what would be
with
the
what they're
most
currently doing
difficult
in their
part?
operation.
Right. So what would be the hardest change to kind of wrap your mind around say you're a grower and you're thinking about it. What's the hardest first step to take?
I think for a lot of guys that it is the weed spraying, backing that weed spray up closer to the trunk of the tree, not having such a wide band. Like Rachel was saying before, a lot of guys, they want to do that one pass. They've designed their equipment and their everything around making it a one pass. But again, it's not bad. And I know some guys think, oh, my orchards are going to look a little bit uglier. They're not going to, they're not as pretty. Well, at the end of the day, it's not about how pretty the orchard is. It's what's underneath it. So that soil, and what we've seen is just the benefits from what we're doing now. I mean, our soil reports that come back, I'm really excited to see. Rachel and them came down maybe about a month ago, and they did all kinds of new tests, with sap, and just to see what's going on in those trees. And I think so far the results been pretty good, and I think we're going to see a lot of good come from those orchards that we're doing regenerative practices in now and have been for, on some of them, 10 plus years.
Yeah, I'm interested to learn more about some of the tests, or what are some of the other some of the other tests that Greg just mentioned that you guys are doing.
Yeah. So I do want to jump back to something Greg said really quick because
Mhm.
getting some of my growers into this regenerative space, the biggest pushback I've had from growers when I say, oh, it's really easy, we'll just mow a little bit less, we'll leave the mower deck a little bit higher. The biggest comment that growers give me back is, well, what are my neighbors going to think? Because the neighbor's going to think I abandoned this orchard. It's not all pretty and mowed like a golf course and stuff. And through these tests, what we're really finding is that it's pretty, don't get me wrong. It's kind of the, picture children's book standard, but those are some of our least healthiest soils that we're finding through our tests that we're doing.
Gotcha. You said something about you were doing tissue samples also, leaf set
Yep.
testing?
This is the first year we took some of our year one pilot program growers, which includes Greg Kugel, and started doing sap samples on the tree. So kind of testing to see how those nutrients are moving through the tree and into the leaves during the day and kind of see what we can find with some of our new practices. Now that Greg's been doing this for 3 years, is there a difference and what type of difference do we see?
Yeah, we gave up on trying to figure out exactly how or to make our orchards look really good. Because when we just started doing organic, it was, boy, was that a change. Because we always kind of liked having some. It does. The trees are not reacting well, and the grass is always long, and and the weeds are the grass is almost all the way up into the bottoms of the trees, and it's not very pleasant to look at, but and of course, it's the farm that's on our most road frontage and the most popular
Of
road in
course.
northern Michigan, which is always a tough look. But yeah, I mean, you do have to make some of those sacrifices in order to make changes like that. Or it's probably hard for, like you said, for growers to kind of try and break that standard that they've had in their mind for so long and get concerned about what neighbors are going to say. Because we had the same thing. Our neighbor here, was not a fan that we were going organic with our cherry block, but he learned to live with it. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he learned to live with it. He just got out of the business.
he took all his trees out.
Great, Greg. What other kind of practices are you guys doing for the regenerative ag?
So the biggest thing is, taking that weed spray strip, making it as narrow as possible. So turning nozzles off in that weed sprayer, which a lot of it, there's a financial benefit to it too. Each one of those weed spray tanks goes a lot farther now. So we're saving a big, we have a cost savings there. So you may move some cost savings around if you're having to make a double pass with the mower. We don't mow nearly as often. We do let those get up there. Yeah, it looks ugly, but we do notice in those orchards where we let that base, that cover crop grow in the middle. I mean, the water filtration that those orchards have, we're not mudding up those orchards like some of our standard ones. That ground is a lot more loose. It allows those nutrients, those roots to kind of really go through there. I mean, that soil, when you dig it up, you can just see the aeration and there's just the structure of that soil. I think Alec was out there and he was digging some up and he was counting worms and what he was finding. And some of the numbers he was saying they were great versus some of the orchards they've seen in the past where, are higher density in the back, which is those trees don't look as healthy. They were trained and grown a completely different way. But we were kind of cutting back to maybe only 2 or 3 passes with the mower. The big thing, that weed spray strip, really, really narrowing that up on a few orchards. We're not doing anything. We have 2 orchards that they haven't been weed sprayed. One hasn't been weed sprayed in probably 20 years. And some of those weeds you would think would be growing up through the tree, they seem to have controlled themselves. They get up to the bottom, but for the most part, it's not bad. I mean, and it's not next to the road like maybe yours was. It's kind of, back more up in the middle.
I noticed you said that the trees that aren't growing great are at the back of the farm. I heard that. You usually slip that one in there.
It just makes it easier. But no, I mean the whole regenerative, the tiers you know, that we have to follow. I mean, everything about there's nothing that is unattainable. I mean, one of the big ones we switched to last year was what we were planting in our row crop middles. Chuck actually made us a custom blend designed for Michigan species, and it was not only half the cost of a lot of blends that guys are planting in the middle of their rows, but I mean, when we have some comparisons over the years to go off of, it's by far the best. It has made a great base. Those orchards are looking amazing. And the one orchard that Rachel and them were in the other day, I had told them that the way that it's a newer block, it's on year 3 right now. it's been sprayed maybe one time, and you really wouldn't be able to tell. There's not a lot of disease pressure in the block. The trees look fairly healthy, and Rachel can probably touch on some of that of what she saw in that younger block versus the older ones that she was in two of ours.
Well, Greg, I think this has been a great insight. Is there anything else that you wanna add to the regenerative ag program, or a final send off before we let you back off to whatever you were doing on this fine Monday night?
I appreciate Rachel and the whole GoGo squeeZ team for working with us and giving us an opportunity to join this regen thing and right off the get-go and come down and give us the time and the resources to be able to make some of these changes. And I think it's really cool what they're doing. I'm glad to be a part of it, and I hope to work with them for many years to come.
Awesome, Greg. Well, I appreciate your time, and obviously you're always more than happy to come on and chat with us on the podcast. So we appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Greg.
Greg.
See ya.
Okay. I love Greg. He's a good time.
He is a good time, and he's good. He had no qualms about jumping right into this regenerative, which they generally were doing some of these tier 1, almost tier 2 practices already before we came to him. His hardest challenge was just keeping his dad off the mower, though.
There is something about
Yeah,
how
the
old man,
the older generation.
they see that tractor sitting in the field and they're like, I gotta take this. We started having to hide them from Dean. We had to hide the keys because
Yeah.
they would jump in it and then the tractor wouldn't be where he left it. It'd
Yeah,
be in the
well,
middle of the road, ran out of diesel.
that old mentality too of if there's not something to do, we'll go out and mow then.
Just
and,
mow
and-
grass.
Yeah, you're doing something.
Exactly. Yeah,
If nothing, you're spending money.
Yeah.
Zach, have you picked out a question you want to ask?
I think we covered all the regenerative ag stuff.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add? I know you were really excited about this. So is there anything that we didn't touch on for the regenerative ag program that you want growers to know about at like a basic level? If a grower wanted to get in touch with GoGo squeeZ or you or in general to take this first step into regenerative ag, what should they do?
yeah. If a grower wanted to jump into regenerative ag, I would immediately suggest reaching out to me on it. I'm on farm the most, out in the field the most, kind of talking with growers. And although we have a limited budget this year of growers that need to be on it, by 2030, I need to be sourcing 100% regeneratively, or those moving regeneratively. And that's not that far away when we look at a permanent crop system like apples. So definitely reach out to me when it comes down to it. We do also, we call it a regen roundtable in the fall. We do it right after harvest, right before deer season. And we get all of our growers together in one room and we kind of just open the table up to let them talk about what worked and what didn't work. Because our KPIs is a living document. I want to make sure that this works for everyone and their grower, and the neighbor grows differently than the neighbor on the other side, and we want to make sure that this regenerative and the KPIs work for everyone. So joining us in the fall, and then we do some webinars as well in the winter. It's just kind of open to anyone who's interested in it. So that's always a good start for growers to jump into it.
I also read about a program called the Apple Academy
Yeah.
or Bells. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so the last week in May, so the Wednesday following a Memorial Weekend, we brought in 20 of our corporate partners and superiors, and we set up what we call Apple Academy. So we took them on a tour. We did some PowerPoints at first and then took them out to an orchard out on the ridge, Windy Ridge Orchard. So shout out to Kyle Rash for letting us kind of crash his orchard. And I included 4 more growers kind of into our crowd as well. And just kind of let Kyle have the stage and let him talk about what it truly takes to grow the perfect processing apple for us. And, it's not just go out there, water them a little bit, and then pick the perfect apple for GoGo squeeZ. And I think a lot of our corporate partners didn't really realize all the work that goes into it, which is it's not something that they do every day or see every day, but they still have a say in how we source apples here in Michigan. To us on the ground, it was really important to let our growers kind of have the floor and let them talk about what's important to them, the work that goes into it, and the amount of challenges that they deal with too, because at the end of the day, it really kind of feels like whatever higher power you believe in has 51% of the control of how this crop turns out. So there's only a limited amount of things that we can do to make the perfect apple for,
Hmm.
GoGo squeeZ. So we kind of moved through that. We talked with one of our largest storage operators too up in Hart. We brought in storage control systems to talk to our partners as well. Then finished up Friday up at the Traverse City plant. So it was kind of this really cool, from orchard to pouch type of situation. And I think everyone who came was able to find something that related to their job within GoGo squeeZ and Bell.
Yeah, that's cool that you actually that these individuals want to, or that you're getting them to see the entire process on what it takes besides, their normal job that probably never would otherwise cross paths with them being in the orchard to see the grower and see what they're doing in the farm. And then, like you said, farm to pouch or orchard to pouch, process is probably pretty neat for some folks that don't get to see that entire process.
Yeah, yeah, it was fantastic. We had a great outpouring afterwards too. And then, during dinner too, we gave all four of our growers who were there a chance to kind of talk about what issues they're truly having. You always hear about labor and input costs, but there's so many more challenges that growers come across that someone who works in the finance department or in marketing or in sales may not realize. I think it was fantastic. That was our second year doing it, and I'm not ready to plan the third one yet, but I think through this winter we'll start looking at the third.
Yeah. Do you guys, is there like do you offer an opportunity for those corporate folks to kind of maybe give a chance to share their opinion on what they saw that day or anything where they can share thoughts or questions back to the growers? Or does that just happen in regular conversation?
Yeah, we gave all of the growers an opportunity to kind of give out their contact information should they want to. And so from there, I kind of tell everyone that if they forgot or if there's something that comes up in the meantime to reach out to me and I can put them in contact with a grower or answer the question best I can for them.
That is super cool because like we always talk about the disconnect between whether it's just people showing up to a farm market or and because Steve would be able to talk on it more. His family owns a farm market here in town, and they always talk about if someone saw a high density apple orchard and
Know what it was.
they asked if they were growing telephone poles, is what someone actually asked the front desk. Or they have a miniature cow and they asked if it was a llama. And, it's just like the disconnect between the general public. I mean, this is obviously you're talking corporate people, but that disconnect is real. And so that's why I think, doing stuff and being forward with the consumers, which your guys' social media does an awesome job of putting so much information out and into the consumer and then bridging that gap with these programs goes a long way with educating people what happens here in the state of Michigan and in the country, growing fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you just think about if we reach one sales department within GoGo squeeZ that can take these stories back to the retailer to kind of retell to the retailer what they're doing and the importance of what the people that are growing our food and how important they are and care for, the ground that they're on. That's just one more step in the right direction to kind of help that general consumer understand.
So can you talk a little bit more about some of the other products that GoGo squeeZ offers besides just the pouches?
Absolutely. So GoGo squeeZ itself really just does the apple based pouches. We've got three new ones that just came out. Obviously the GoGo squeeZ Active, which has an energy and an electrolyte kind of hybrid lines. We just came out with GoGo squeeZ Protein in the applesauce smoothie pouch. We do have a dairy version of it as well. So kind of like a yogurt protein in a pouch. And then our newest one that just came out is GoGo squeeZ Slimes. It sounds super different, but it leans still more towards applesauce than it does Jello. But what it really reminds me of is those Sour Patch Kid candies. So those are new ones. Bell, as a parent company, we do the Boursin cheeses, the Baby Bell cheeses, and then of course GoGo squeeZ has that dairy and pudding line. So we do yogurts, smoothies, puddings. We did also just announce that we purchased a new company, Brainiacs. So there'll be more information on that coming soon. That's geared more towards kind of toddlers and infants with brain health, different vitamins and minerals in it as well. So all super exciting things to come.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you guys were involved in not much more. So that is some pretty exciting stuff.
Do you guys do just the applesauce pouches in Traverse City? Is that all that
Yes,
comes out of it? Okay.
both the Napa, Idaho and the Traverse City plant just do just apple based products. So it is a nut free, dairy free facility at both of them.
We got to get a heavy apple and cherry blend in to help the tart cherry
Yeah.
industry out a little bit. That's what we need. It's the
Yeah,
superfruit.
I just saw an apple cherry blend. That's kind of new. So next time you go to your Walmart or Meijer, keep an eye out for that.
Hmm. See, you better pick one of those up on the way home and slide it
Right.
down the top right there and see what they think. So obviously, we just talked about a little bit about kind of the marketing aspect of it, and I know that might not necessarily be your job, but when I think about when you're trying to market something, obviously that kids eat a majority of. I mean, I might steal a go-go squeeze going out the door, on my way to work too. But obviously, the target isn't necessarily the child, even though that's the one who consumes it, but they're not the one buying it at the store, right? So you have to be up on all of these trends, right? You're doing the regenerative ag and being healthier. Now you're doing Brainiacs for kids. And so there's so many things that you guys are doing in order to target that parent because they're the one who actually purchases it to give it to those kids. So it's kind of funny to think about that. It's almost like Miss Rachel. The kid will watch Miss Rachel, but they're not the ones who goes and clicks it to puts it on the TV
Yes.
at certain ages. So it's kind of like a similar fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what I'm finding really quick, so my kids race dirt bikes and we obviously take product to the races to hand out. And that's generally the GoGo squeeZ active line. And all of the kids know GoGo squeeZ, right? They know the logo, they know everything. But what I see adults more excited for this Go-Go squeeZ active than some of the kids do. Your 30, 40, 60-year-old dirt bike racers that are super excited to have something that, is light on the stomach, helps out, during hard endurance races and stuff like that. So we're noticing that in college kids as well. And some of your older athletes, someone going out, let's say to play pickleball or to play tennis, loves throwing it in their backpack.
There's so many good benefits for meals and stuff like that that really resonate with all types of groups. So obviously, if you guys are so popular with that younger generation, and then you can try and branch out and get, do the protein and do the active that can target those extra groups, that probably goes a long way to selling a lot more product.
Absolutely.
So do you think that consumers have been looking for functionality for products like that? Is that what drives you guys to kind of search for those other markets to try and expand what you have going on?
Yeah, I think it really does. Parents are running around a lot more lately, especially, you've got spring sports or summer sports, summer camps, or even just something, as a mom working from home that my kids just need to eat something really quick. It's like, hey, just grab this. But also, I think parents and adults are becoming much, much more aware of what's in their food and not just going out and buying something that's cheap or easy to eat. They're looking for something that actually has a good nutritional value to it, and their dollar is going to go a long ways in that sense.
I completely agree. So we talked about difficult seasons earlier. How important is that communication with a grower that they may be having a problem with you early? That probably goes a long way, I'd imagine.
It goes a really, really long ways. Like I said, I'm very lucky to have a very, you know, key supplier and lower loyal grower base here in Michigan, that they kind of call me as soon as they start to see an issue arise. And I source from about five main regions here in Michigan. And I think I've got a call from at least, five different growers in every one of those regions to kind of keep me updated as we go through all this. The goofy bloom. I mean, we went straight from a drought last year to one of the wettest springs on record and, then lots of frosts. And so that communication with the growers is super, super helpful to kind of help me in my planning strategy.
Yeah, and so how important is it to you to work when you get a grower and you've been working them for a while? How important is that long-term relationship to your job to supply what you guys need?
It's more important than I could put in words, truly. Just having that loyal grower base, these, key suppliers, we call them, that I know that I can rely on, whether I get 50% of their crop or 100% of their processing crop, that I know that they're going to be there even through the harder times. And so when Michigan kind of comes up in a shorter season, obviously we're not the only processor in Michigan. I can kind of lean on those key suppliers a little bit to say, what's your crop look like? What are we going to struggle with? And then I can kind of build out from there on the rest of my sourcing strategy, whether it be just in Michigan or from states outside of Michigan.
So what misconceptions do you think the consumers have about processed food or fruit products?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception that consumers have is just that those apples themselves are treated differently out in the orchard. I think when some people think of an apple as a processing apple, it's something that they don't want to eat. Maybe it's got worms in it or something like that. And this is not at all like that. All of our growers take care of their processing fruit almost the same exact way that they do their fresh market fruit, where, we have very strict specifications for the apples that we source and take in. And so I think consumers need to understand that, growers take care of this crop the same way that they would as that apple that they see on the grocery store shelf.
That's very true. You take care of them all the same.
Pretty much. Yep.
Well, we're kind of coming up on our 1 hour. Is there anything else that you want to cover before we're done here? This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about you guys and regenerative ag and GoGo squeeZ in general that I had no clue about. So this has been super cool.
Good, awesome. I think one of the biggest things that I get questions about in my sourcing strategy is why, if Michigan grows enough apples, do I still source from out of state? And I think that's become very evident this year that Michigan, you know, I'm still cautiously optimistic that we squeaked by these frosts by the skin of our teeth and we'll have a pretty healthy apple crop, although maybe down a little bit. We need some rain, but I need to keep these other states in as well. Don't want to put all your apples in one basket. So if we were to have another situation like the freeze in 2012, I can still source apples from other states that are going to continue to support that GoGo squeeZ mission and that healthy snacking that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to lose that shelf space by having a short crop in one area, right? You work hard to get into these markets and it's important to keep that flow. I mean, and obviously other people's jobs depend on it. If you only source from one spot and all of a sudden all these people in these plants and they don't have anything to run, then it's not only, affecting your job and it affects the growers, but it affects everyone from orchard to pouch.
Exactly. And losing that shelf space, regardless of what I source from other states and here in Michigan kind of thing, in the long run, it affects Michigan growers. Michigan growers need somewhere with that processing fruit to go, and we want to stay here and stay strong.
Awesome. Well, Zach, do you have anything else for Rachael before she goes?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, this really has been awesome. Thank you so much for the time. I know we've been going back and forth for probably 2 months now, trying to find a good time to get this lined up. But I'm glad that we finally got together. This has been an awesome conversation, and I'd just like to keep in touch here in the future. And if anything else comes out new about regenerative ag, or there's some new topic that you want to talk about, or anything like that, we'd love to have you back on to have another conversation about growing processing apples here in regenerative ag in Michigan.
Awesome. No, that sounds great. And I'll definitely reach out next time in northern Michigan too, see if we can meet up on the farm.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rachael. This podcast is available on Apple, Google, Spotify. There's clips at the Specialty Cropcast on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Anywhere you get your podcast, this is available. So again, thank you very much for coming on, Zach. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Hal.
And we'll catch everybody on the next episode of the Specialty Cropcast.